You will not believe what happened the morning after a poor waitress helped a stranger in the rain. This is not a story about luck. This is a story about kindness, about cruelty, about the invisible battles poor people fight every day, and how one small act of compassion shattered a chain of injustice and rebuilt a life from the ground up. And right before the story starts, please take a moment to subscribe. Every subscriber helps us spread more hope, more justice. Your support means more than you know. It helps us keep telling stories that lift people up and remind the world what compassion looks like. Her name was Lena Brooks, a young woman trying to survive in a world that seemed determined to break her spirit. The night everything changed, she drove home through a storm that did not care who it drowned. Rain hammered her old blue pickup, hard, relentless, like the sky itself was falling. The wipers screeched across the glass, barely clearing anything, their old rubber peeling, crying out with every swipe. Her hands were numb, her uniform soaked through, her hair clinging to her neck, her whole body shivering from cold and exhaustion. She had worked a double shift, was paid barely enough, and still, she gave everything she had. But that night, that storm, would lead her to something she never expected. She squinted through the blurry windshield, trying to see the road, trying to stay awake, trying to make it home before her truck gave out. The engine rattled, coughed, groaned, as if begging her to stop, but she kept going, because poor people do not get to stop. They do not get to rest. They do not get to break. And then, she saw it, a dark gray sedan, leaned awkwardly toward the ditch. Hazard lights blinking weakly, like they were struggling to stay alive. Steam drifted from the hood, mixing with the rain, dissolving into the night. Beside the car stood an elderly man, his coat soaked, his shoulders trembling, his breathing shallow as he tried to hold onto the fender for balance. No shelter, no help. Just a man alone in the storm. Most drivers passed him, pretending they did not see, pretending it was not their problem. But Lena was different. She slowed her truck, pulled beside him, and rolled her window down. "Sir, are you all right?" Her voice cut through the storm, soft, concerned. The man turned, blinking water from his eyes, his face pale, his voice trembling. "My car, it died. I cannot get a signal. I cannot call anyone." He looked tired, fragile. Lena felt something pull inside her, some instinct deep in her chest, a warmth stronger than the cold around her. "Get in," she said. "You will freeze out here." He hesitated. People rarely expect kindness, especially from someone who clearly does not have much to give. But something about her, her steady voice, her calm presence, her sincerity, made him trust her. He opened the door, climbed inside, soaked, shivering, dripping water onto her already damp seats. The heater barely worked, but Lena twisted the knob anyway, letting the old machine rattle and groan, trying its best to give them a little warmth. "I am Lena," she said, trying to break the silence. The man nodded slowly. "Arthur Miles. Thank you." She gave a small, tired smile. Anyone would have stopped, but deep down, she knew, not everyone would. The drive to her neighborhood was quiet, except for the rain, the rattling truck and Arthur's shallow breaths. Lena lived in a small apartment in a row of aging buildings forgotten by the city where the streetlights flickered and the walls were thin, but it was home, and it was warm, warmer than the storm outside. She invited him inside, even though she had little to offer, even though she had barely anything herself. Her apartment was tiny, one room, a kitchenette, a couch she used as a bed, a radiator that clicked more than it heated, and cabinets that echoed when empty. She handed him her only dry blanket, prepared instant noodles, and placed the warm cup in his hands. Arthur looked around, at her small life, her quiet kindness, her generosity born not from abundance, but from empathy. "You did not have to do this," he said softly. "Everyone needs help sometimes," she replied, and she meant every word. He fell asleep on her couch, wrapped in her blanket, safe for the night. Lena sat by the window, watching the rain soften, feeling tired, but strangely peaceful. She had done the right thing, even if it cost her sleep, even if it cost her time, even if it cost her work the next morning. She believed kindness mattered, even when the world pretended it did not. Morning crawled in, gray and cold. Lena stretched slowly, expecting to see Arthur still bundled on the couch, but he was gone. The blanket was folded neatly, and on the table, a small note waited. "Thank you for treating me like a human being," from Arthur. She held the note gently, tucked it into her pocket, smiling faintly. She thought that was the end, but she had no idea. The real story was just beginning. Sunnyside Grill was already buzzing when she arrived, 5 minutes late, damp from the drizzle, her hair sticking to her cheeks. Inside, plates clattered, coffee steamed, customers filled the booths, and behind the counter, like a storm waiting to strike, stood Calvin Rudd, her manager, the man who never missed a chance to remind her she was poor, expendable, replaceable. "Brooks, you are late." His voice cut through the diner, sharp, cruel, loud enough for everyone to hear. Customers turned. The young cook froze. Even the waitress pouring coffee hesitated. Lena opened her mouth. "Sir, I helped an older man. His car broke down." Calvin snapped over her. "You think this job cares why you are late?" You think good deeds pay your wages. You think the world rewards kindness. He smiled, a twisted smile, designed to shame her, designed to make her feel small. Hand over your apron, you are done. The diner fell silent. Utensils paused. Voices died. Every eye turned to her. Lena's heart dropped. Her hands trembled. But she untied her apron, folded it carefully, and set it on the counter. She refused to break. Not here, not in front of him. She walked out, into the cold drizzle, feeling the weight of poverty settling over her again. Unfair, relentless. But her story was not over. At noon, the universe returned what she gave, and it walked through the diner door, wearing a charcoal coat, polished shoes, and calm authority. At exactly 12:30, the bell above the diner door chimed, just once, but it was enough. The noise of the room seemed to fold in on itself. Conversations faded. Forks paused halfway to mouths. The cook stopped turning eggs on the grill. A man stepped inside, tall, calm, dressed in a charcoal coat that looked too expensive for a place that served cheap coffee and overworked waitresses. His hair was silver, neatly combed, his posture relaxed, but his gaze, sharp, measuring, quietly powerful. Some customers shifted in their seats, sensing something, a change in the air. Behind the counter, Calvin Rudd straightened like a puppet pulled by strings. His fake smile arrived before he did, stretched wide, thin, desperate. Sir, welcome. So glad you could make it. He rushed forward, wiping invisible crumbs from the counter with his sleeve, as if he could scrub away the cruelty he had spilled there that morning. Arthur Miles took in the room, the booths, the counter, the tired staff, the worn floors, the faces that pretended not to stare. He did not smile. He only nodded once. Calvin talked fast. Everything is perfect. Staff is efficient. Service is on time. No nonsense tolerated. His voice carried the same cold pride he used when he fired Lena. Arthur let him talk. Let him dig his own hole. His eyes continued to scan the room. He looked to the left, to the corner near the register, to the place where a young woman with kind eyes should have been. But it was empty. He frowned. Barely, but enough for the cook to notice. Where's the young woman? Arthur asked. His tone was level, but the question cut through the space like a blade. Calvin blinked. I am sorry, sir. Which young woman? Arthur looked straight at him now. The waitress from last night. Small, tired, but kind. She helped me when no one else would. The room stilled. The staff exchanged quick, nervous glances. Calvin forced a short laugh. Oh, her. He waved a hand as if brushing dust from a sleeve. She was not a good fit for the image we want. Always late, always making excuses. Customers do not respect that. I let her go this morning. The cook at the grill lowered his head. The waitress, refilling sugar jars, closed her eyes for a moment. Both of them knew it was not the full truth. Arthur took a step closer. Let her go. The words were quiet, heavy. Calvin nodded quickly. Yes, sir. I run a tight ship. People like her, they hold a place back. Arthur tilted his head slightly. People like her, yes. Employees who think their personal lives matter more than the job. She even tried to tell me she was helping some old man in the storm. He rolled his eyes, as if that has anything to do with being late. Arthur did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Call her back. The words dropped into the silence, like stones into deep water. Calvin blinked. Sir, that will not be necessary. I can assure you we can hire better. Arthur did not move, did not blink. I was not asking for your opinion. I said, call her back. The entire diner felt the temperature shift. The cook stopped pretending to clean. The waitress set down the sugar jar. Even the customers sensed something serious was unfolding. Calvin swallowed, his tongue thick with fear he tried to hide. Right away, sir. He hurried to the office phone, hands shaking as he dialed the number. He had written on her file the number he did not think he would ever need again, a few streets away. Lena sat on the edge of her small bed, her apron folded beside her, her eyes red from hours of trying not to cry. The room felt smaller than ever. Walls closing in, bills piled on the table, rent due, fridge nearly empty. She stared at the note from Arthur, still tucked safely in her hand. Thank you for treating me like a human being. The words burned and comforted at the same time. Her phone buzzed. She flinched. Unknown number. She answered quietly. Hello, Brooks. This is Calvin from Sunnyside. Grilla's voice sounded tight, forced polite. Lena gripped the phone. Yes, we need you to come back to the diner. Now. She closed her eyes. I am sorry, sir. I do not understand. Come back to the diner, he repeated, then hung up. No explanation. No apology, just an order. Her stomach twisted. Part of her wanted to ignore him, to stay where she was, to protect the last pieces of her dignity, but she could not afford that. People with money say follow your heart. People without money say follow the phone call. She pulled on her uniform, still damp from the morning, pulled her hair into a quick tie, and left for the diner. The bell above the door chimed as she walked in. Every head turned. The cook looked relieved. The waitress gave the tiniest nod. Customers who had watched her humiliation that morning now stared with uncomfortable curiosity, and next to the counter, Calvin stood with his forced smile. Beside him, Arthur Miles, the stranger from the storm. Except he was not just a stranger. Not anymore. Lena froze in the doorway. Her heart jumped. Her mind raced. What was he doing here? Arthur turned, saw her, and his expression softened instantly. Miss Brooks. His voice was warm, steady, anchored. You came. She nodded. Unable to trust her voice, Arthur stepped forward. Yesterday, you helped me on a dark road. You had no reason to stop, no promise of reward. You simply saw someone who needed help, and you gave what you could, even though you had very little yourself. You gave me shelter, warm food, and dignity. He paused. Let the words sit with them, with her. I am the owner of this diner. The room gasped. The cook covered his mouth. The waitress dropped a spoon. A customer whispered. I told you something was up. Calvin went pale, his fake smile cracking like thin ice. Arthur continued. This morning I came to see how things were run here. Instead, I learned that the person who showed me the greatest kindness I have received in years was fired, in front of a room full of people, for being 5 minutes late. After saving my life on the road, he turned slowly, looking at the customers, at the staff, at Calvin. This place, he said, will not be built on cruelty. It will not be run by humiliation. He faced Lena again, effective immediately. You are reinstated, and you are promoted to assistant manager. The words landed like a thunderclap. The room erupted into hushed exclamations. No way. Did you hear that? She is assistant manager now. Lena stood frozen, every breath sharp, her eyes filling with tears. She tried to blink away. Me, she whispered. Arthur nodded. You, because leadership is not about barking orders. It is about kindness under pressure, integrity when no one is watching. That is what you showed me. Calvin stumbled forward. Sir, you cannot be serious. She is not trained. She is not. Arthur did not even look at him. You wanted to impress me by running a tight ship. You succeeded. You showed me exactly what I never want this place to become. Calvin opened his mouth, closed it again, his arguments dissolving under the weight of the truth behind him. Some staff hid small smiles. For the first time, they saw someone stand up to the man who had treated them like they were disposable. Arthur turned back to Lena. This job, this promotion, you have earned it. Not because of what you did for me, but because of who you already were before we met. Do you accept? Lena swallowed, her throat thick, her heart thudding. Yes. Arthur smiled. Then let us begin. From that day everything shifted at first. It was small things, the way staff stood a little straighter when Lena walked in, not from fear but from respect. The way customers seemed more relaxed when she greeted them, offered them coffee, asked about their day, the way the kitchen ran smoother, not because of stricter rules, but because people finally felt heard. She listened, really listened, to the new kid at the grill, who worked nights to pay for school, to the older waitress who sent half her wages back home to her parents, to the dishwasher, who was late sometimes, not because he did not care, but because the single bus line to his neighborhood often broke down. Lena understood, because she lived that life too, the life where you count coins before buying bread, where rent sits like a weight in the back of your mind, where one emergency can drown you. She knew what it meant to clock in hungry. She knew what it felt like to smile at customers, while your heart sank over an unpaid bill. She refused to treat anyone the way Calvin had treated her. Respect did not cost money. Dignity did not require a budget, so she gave both freely. The diner responded. Tips increased. Regulars began asking for her by name. Some came in just to sit in her section, just to feel the genuine warmth she brought to their tired mornings. Arthur visited often at first, quietly sitting in a corner booth, observing. He watched the way she diffused tension, how she handled rude customers with calm grace, how she stepped in when a coworker was overwhelmed, how she stayed late to help close even when she was exhausted. It reminded him of something, of the way she had opened her small apartment to him that night. She had treated him like a person when she thought he was no one. He would not forget that, but not everyone was happy. In the evenings, after the rush died down, Calvin sat near the register, counting people, counting tips, counting all the things he thought he deserved. He watched Lena move through the diner with her small, tired smile, giving instructions, offering encouragement, checking that everyone had what they needed. That should be me, he thought. I built this place. I kept it running. In his mind, her rise was not a result of her character or effort. It was an insult to him, a punishment he did not believe he deserved. He muttered under his breath as he cleaned tables. Manager, assistant manager, titles that once gave him power, now dangled above him. He had been demoted, pushed to nights, given tasks he saw as beneath him. He smiled when customers were near, because that was expected. But when the doors closed, and the sign flipped from open to closed, his smile twisted into something darker. Watch her fall, he whispered to himself. Everyone falls. You just have to wait. For a while, life seemed almost peaceful. Lena still struggled. Her apartment was still small, her bills still heavy, her body still tired. But now, there was a flicker of something new. Hope, a fragile hope, but real. She began saving a little each week, just a few crumpled notes in an envelope tucked behind her. Dishes she dreamed quietly, of maybe fixing the radiator, of buying a thicker blanket, of one day not worrying about every single coin. Arthur noticed the small changes, The new confidence in her posture, the way she looked customers in the eye now, the way she allowed herself to laugh sometimes. He also noticed something else, the way Calvin watched her. Not like a coworker, not like a manager, like a man waiting beside a bridge, watching for cracks. Then the first incident happened. It was a Thursday night. Rain whispering against the windows, the diner almost empty. Lena counted the register before closing. The numbers did not add up. $40 missing. She frowned, checked again, checked the receipts, checked the orders. Still missing? She stayed late, recounted everything. No mistake. Her chest tightened. The next night, it happened again. This time, $60 gonna buy. The third time, $85. Her stomach sank. Someone was taking money. And from the way the drawers were left, from the way the counts were altered, it looked like that someone was her. She could not sleep. She lay awake in her small apartment, staring at the ceiling, listening to the radiator click. If the numbers kept failing, if the cash kept vanishing, Arthur might think she was stealing. And for someone like her, someone poor, someone who had already been fired once, accusations stuck faster than truth. She knew how the world worked. People believed the one in power, not the one counting coins on the bus. The next morning, Arthur arrived early. He found Lena in the office, bent over the register logs, dark circles under her eyes. Is everything all right? He asked. She hesitated, then decided, if she was going to lose everything, it would not be because she stayed silent. Something is wrong. Someone is taking cash from the registers. And changing the final count, he studied her face. Do you think they are trying to make it look like you are responsible? She swallowed. Yes, he nodded once. Then we will find out who. That night, after closing, a quiet man in plain clothes entered the diner with Arthur. He carried a small case and spoke very little. This is Grant, Arthur said. He is a private investigator. We are going to install cameras, hidden, discreet. No one needs to know, except you. Lena felt a mix of relief and dread. If the cameras proved her innocence, good. If they did not, if for some reason the truth never appeared, her reputation would be destroyed. But she trusted Arthur, trusted that he had not once treated her like she was less trusted, that he meant it when he said he believed in her, so she nodded. Do whatever you need to do. Grant moved quietly around the diner, placing tiny cameras in corners, near registers, overlooking the safe. By morning, no one could tell anything was different. The days resumed, coffee poured, plates clattered, orders rang through the window, between kitchen and floor. But now, the walls were watching. One night, when the storm returned, rain beating on the glass just like the night she first met Arthur, Lena left early to handle a delivery issue. Leaving Calvin to close, he watched her walk out, his jaw tight. Then, slowly, he turned toward her register. He looked around the empty diner. No customers, no staff, just him, and the quiet hum of the lights. He opened the drawer, his fingers lingering over the neat stacks of bills. He pulled some out, folded them, slid them into his pocket. A slow, satisfied smile spread across his face. Let's see you talk your way out of this, princess. What he did not know was that this time, the diner was not just holding plates and coffee cups, it was holding his confession. The camera caught everything. The next morning, the diner opened like any other day. Coffee sizzled, the grill cracked and popped, customers filed in, shaking off the rain from their coats. But something was different. There was an uneasy tension in the air. Arthur Miles stood by the counter, arms crossed, expression unreadable. The private investigator leaned quietly against the wall, with a small laptop in his hand. Calvin walked in whistling. Pretending nothing was wrong, he grabbed his apron and nodded toward Arthur with a forced grin. Morning, sir. Ready for another great day? Arthur didn't answer. The staff exchanged nervous looks. Then Arthur said, everyone, gather around. The entire diner froze. The cook turned off the grill. The waitress set the coffee pot down. Customers sensed the shift and grew silent. Calvin frowned. What's going on? Arthur nodded to the investigator, who placed the laptop on the counter. Press play, Arthur said. The video began. Calvin's face appeared on the screen. Not from that morning, not from yesterday. From the night before, Calvin walked straight to Lena's register, looked around, opened the drawer, took out cash, shoved it into his pocket. Then came the part that made the room gasp. Calvin leaned toward the drawer and whispered, let's see you talk your way out of this. The moment the audio played, several customers covered their mouths. The waitress whispered, oh my God. Calvin's face drained of color. He stumbled backward. That's fake. He blurted, it's edited. She set me up. Lena, standing near the counter, flinched at the accusation. Arthur raised a hand. The cameras were installed by licensed professionals, he said calmly. There is no editing, no trick. Calvin's breathing grew fast and shaky. I can explain. Explain how you stole from the business, Arthur asked. Explain how you tried to ruin Lena's reputation. Calvin looked around desperately, but no one came to his defense, not even the coworkers he had pushed around for years. 2 police officers stepped inside quietly. Calvin Rudd, one of them asked. Calvin panicked. Wait, you can't. She's lying. The officers grabbed his wrists and snapped handcuffs on. Customers in the booths watched in stunned silence. As he was led toward the door, Calvin turned to Lena, hatred mixed with fear in his eyes. "You think you're better than me?" he growled. "You think you won?" Arthur stepped forward. "She didn't need to win," he said. "You lost the moment you stopped being decent." The officers pulled Calvin outside into the rain. The bell above the door jingled softly behind him. A storm had ended. Inside the diner, the silence was thick, but this time, it wasn't fear. It was relief and respect. The days after Calvin's arrest felt lighter, like someone had opened a window that had been stuck for years. People laughed more. The staff worked together, instead of against each other. Regular customers started leaving bigger tips. And Lena, she changed, too. Not loudly, not with ego, but with quiet confidence. She trained new servers with patience. She handled morning rushes like a pro. She listened to customers like they mattered. Arthur watched her with a proud smile. From his corner booth, he visited less often now because he didn't need to check on anything. The diner was in good hands. One evening, he approached Lena as she finished organizing receipts. "You handled everything with grace," Arthur said gently. She shrugged, smiling quietly. "I just did what felt right." Arthur shook his head. "No, you did more than that. You saved this place." Lena looked up, eyes soft. "You saved me first." Arthur reached into his coat pocket and pulled out an envelope. Her brows lifted. "What's this? Something you've earned?" he said. She opened it slowly. Inside, legal paperwork. Naming her partner of the diner, not assistant manager, not a temporary supervisor. Partner. She covered her mouth with a hand. Tears forming. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. Arthur smiled. "You already said it," he replied. "You said it the night you stopped in the storm. When you gave a stranger shelter." He tapped the envelope gently. "This is me returning that kindness." Lena hugged the papers to her chest. Overwhelmed, the diner lights glowed warm around her, and for the first time in years she felt like she truly belonged. 6 months later, the diner had a new name, Heartlight Dinner, where kindness matters. The windows sparkled. A new sign glowed above the door. Every seat was filled with smiling customers. People didn't just come for the food anymore. They came for the story. The story of a woman who helped a stranger in the rain, a woman who was fired unfairly, a woman who rose a guy, not through revenge, but through goodness. Lena moved icily through the diner, greeting customers by name, guiding staff with steady hands. Arthur sat in his usual booth, watching with warmth in his eyes. She had become everything he hoped for. Later that night, Lena stepped outside to take a breath. Across the street, under a flickering gas station light, she saw a familiar face. Calvin Rudd. He was wearing a faded work shirt, wiping down a car windshield at a night shift job. He looked smaller now, humbled, human. For a long moment, Lena simply watched. Then she walked toward him. Calvin froze as she approached. She handed him a small, sealed envelope. "What's this?" he asked, voice rough. "Open it when you're ready," Lena said softly. Then she walked away. Hours later, Calvin opened it. Inside was a receipt for a donation Lena made in his name, a small check addressed to a local recovery program, a handwritten note. "Everyone deserves a second chance. I got mine, now it's your turn." Back at the diner, Lena flipped the sign from closed to open for the next morning. The early sun warmed the windows, filling the room with a soft glow. She tied her apron, glanced around the place she now co-owned, and whispered to herself, "We survived the storm." And the first customer of the day walked in smiling. "Good morning," Lena said. "Welcome to Hearthlight Diner where kindness is always on the menu."